The first thing I saw was the deer. It was hanging from the old oak tree in the town square, its glassy eyes staring into nothing. This wasn't some hunting trophy. It was a display, a warning. Its throat had been cut, surgical, not savage. A strange spiral symbol on its flank, in what I hoped was just red paint. The air smelled of blood and something sweet like incense. I had just moved to Havenwood a week ago, seeking refuge from the city. Now, the silence felt heavier, more menacing. I'd run into the heart of something worse. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they didn't care. An old woman sweeping her porch, a man staring blankly from a cafe window. They moved with dreamlike slowness. Their eyes were vacant, their smiles painted on. I felt 1,000 unseen stares. The welcome basket on my porch filled with homemade jams and bread now looked like bait. My phone had no signal. The agent called it rustic charm. Now it felt like a cage. I tried to start my car. The engine sputtered and died. The gas tank was full. It made no sense. Panic set in. I was isolated, trapped. Havenwood was an island surrounded by an impenetrable forest. I was utterly alone. That evening, a knock echoed. Mayor Thompson at the door, smile unnaturally wide. His eyes held a zealous gleam. He invited me to a town gathering. He insisted. It wasn't a request. I knew I shouldn't go. Every instinct screamed to barricade the door. The gathering wasn't at the town hall. Mayor Thompson led me down a winding dirt path, deep into the suffocating darkness of the forest. The only light came from the flickering torches held by other townspeople who joined our silent procession. They emerged from the shadows like phantoms, their faces hidden by the dancing firelight, their footsteps making no sound on the damp earth. The air grew colder, heavy with the scent of pine and decay. I could feel their energy. It was a raw, palpable force, a shared consciousness that pulsed around me like a living thing. We were moving towards something, a location of great power, a place where the veil between worlds is thin. We arrived at a clearing. In the center, a massive bonfire roared, spitting embers into the starless sky. Around it, figures in dark hooded robes stood in a perfect circle, their faces obscured by ornate white masks carved into expressions of serene agony. They chanted in a low, guttural language that vibrated in my bones, a sound that felt ancient and unholy. It wasn't human. It was something else, a frequency of pure darkness that seemed to pull at the very fabric of my soul. I tried to turn back, but two of the robed figures glided to my side, their grip on my arms gentle yet unbreakable. There was no escape. I was part of their ritual now. The mayor, now also robed and masked, stood before the fire. He raised his hands and the chanting stopped. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the noise. He spoke of the great cleansing, a time when the town would be purified. He spoke of the vessel, an outsider needed to anchor the darkness, to become a gateway for the entity they worshipped. His voice, amplified by the strange acoustics of the forest, echoed with a chilling fervor. He was a man possessed by an idea, a belief so powerful it had consumed him and everyone else in this forsaken town. They weren't just a cult, they were a hive, and I was the foreign body they were about to absorb. His gaze fell on me. Through the emotionless mask, I felt his eyes lock onto mine.
"The uninitiated must be prepared," he boomed, his voice sending a tremor of pure fear through me. "He must see what we see. He must feel what we feel."
The figures holding me began to guide me forward, toward a small, candlelit tent set apart from the others. I struggled, my feet dragging in the dirt, but their strength was supernatural. I was being led to an initiation, a ceremony designed to break my mind and spirit, to shatter my reality and rebuild it in their dark image. My journey into madness was just beginning. Inside the tent, the air was thick with the smell of strange herbs, something metallic that I recognized as blood. The only light came from dozens of black candles, their flames casting long, distorted shadows that writhed on the canvas walls like tortured spirits. An old woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, her eyes like chips of obsidian, waited for me. She wasn't wearing a mask. She didn't need one. Her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated devotion to the darkness they served. She held a silver bowl filled with a dark, viscous liquid.
"Drink," she rasped, her voice like sandpaper, "and see the truth."
I refused, shaking my head, my voice caught in my throat. The two figures holding me forced my head back, their grip like iron vices. The old woman brought the bowl to my lips, tipping the foul-smelling liquid down my throat. It tasted of earth and rot and something else, something electrically charged. The moment it hit my stomach, my vision fractured. The tent walls seemed to dissolve, replaced by a swirling vortex of screaming faces and shadowy clawed hands reaching for me from an endless abyss. I was seeing another dimension, a place of pure chaos and fear. This was the source of their power. This was what they worshipped. My mind screamed. I was no longer in control of my own body. I felt a presence slide into my consciousness, a cold and ancient intelligence that began to sift through my memories, my fears, my deepest secrets. It was a violation of the highest order, a psychic intrusion that left me feeling naked and powerless. The cultists weren't just worshipping a demon, they were channeling it, using this ritual to open a door in my mind for it to peer through. They wanted me to see the world through its eyes, to understand its hunger to share in its eternal despair. This was the first step of my conversion. When they finally let me go, I collapsed onto the dirt floor, gasping and shivering. The visions receded, but the feeling of that entity remained, a cold spot in the back of my mind, a permanent stain on my soul. The old woman smiled, a horrifying toothless grin.
"The vessel is strong," she whispered to the others.
He will serve the Great Watcher well. I was no longer just a man. I was a container, a piece of equipment being prepared for a purpose I couldn't yet comprehend. They dragged me from the tent and back toward the fire, my body limp, my will completely shattered. Days blurred into a haze of rituals and teachings. They kept me locked in the cabin, bringing me tainted food and water that kept my mind teetering on the edge of their dark reality. They showed me texts filled with impossible symbols, spoke of a being called the Great Watcher who existed outside of time and fed on the stability of a world it could not enter. They believed that human progress, our technology, our connections, our very hope created a noise that caused it immense pain. The cult's purpose wasn't to summon it or gain power from it. Their goal was much, much stranger. They were trying to soothe it. The night of the final ritual arrived, the great cleansing. They led me back to the forest clearing, but this time I was dressed in white robes. I was the centerpiece of their ceremony. The entire town was there, their masked faces turned toward me with an unnerving reverence. Mayor Thompson stood before me holding a ceremonial dagger that seemed to absorb the firelight.
"The world has grown too loud," he intoned.
His voice resonating with sorrow. Its incessant chatter torments the Great Watcher. We, its humble servants, must create silence. We must create a sanctuary of perfect, simple stillness. A black hole of progress. He explained their twisted philosophy. They weren't trying to end the world. They were trying to save it from the Watcher's wrath by lobotomizing a small piece of it. They would use me, the vessel, as an anchor to sever this entire valley from the rest of reality. My consciousness, amplified by their rituals, would become the focal point of a massive psychic dead zone. Everything within the valley's borders, technology, ambition, complex thought, even the memory of an outside world, would simply cease to be. They would revert to a primitive, thoughtless existence, living in a perfect, silent harmony that would placate the being in the abyss.
"It is an act of mercy," the mayor whispered.
For us, and for the world that will never know we saved it, he wasn't going to kill me. He was going to perform the final cut, not on my flesh, but on my connection to the world. As he plunged the dagger not into my chest, but into the earth at my feet, a wave of energy erupted and the world dissolved into white noise. And in that final terrifying moment, I understood the twist. The cult wasn't escaping the world. They were erasing it. And they weren't trapping me with them. They were trapping the Great Watcher inside of me, turning my mind into its eternal silent prison.